I'm Stila Webb.
And I'm Shivam Ghosh.
I'm going to write my first fiction novel this year.
And I'm going to film it.
And we're going to release one video each week.
And if you keep up with Stila's word count, by the end of 2017, you'll have...
Alright, I'm going to go to the roof and set things up. Morty, you listen to his tale. Okay.
Hey guys. So Shivam's out of town this week because he's on a business trip, but he'll totally be here next week, so I hope nobody's too upset about his absence. He's fine. Just out of town. This week we're going to talk about alpha readers and beta readers. The reason we're talking about it today, in the middle of the writing, is because it usually takes time to set up and find people who are willing to read your novel when you need them to read it and give you criticism and feedback on it. It takes time to read, and it takes time to establish the kind of relationship and to find the type of people that you want reading your stuff and giving you feedback. So what is an alpha reader? An alpha reader is the very first person who reads your piece. You probably already have one, so that part's pretty much taken care of. Shivam is currently my alpha reader. He's the one I go to for plot help when I'm stuck. He knows the most about my plot and my characters because we've talked about it endlessly, so there are no real surprises for him. He knows where everything's going to go. So when he's reading it, he's not reading it as a reader of the book would read it. He's reading it as almost a co-author would read it. Somebody who knows the book intimately. And he knows me really well. So I feel comfortable showing him that level of my work when it's really rough and tumble and not really well put together yet. So you want somebody to be your alpha reader if you don't have one already. All authors don't need them. Everybody's a little bit different. But what you want from an alpha reader is somebody that you're comfortable showing this kind of work to, because writing is a very intimate thing, and you want to feel very comfortable with that person and know that they're not going to tear it to ribbons and hurt you. Alpha readers are also really good if you're the kind of writer who needs encouragement as you write. If you're the kind that gets easily discouraged, or just feels like what you're writing is crap, or you just don't feel like doing it anymore, and you need somebody to be your cheerleader, an alpha reader's a great person for that. You can give them a sample of your work and be like, I'm really excited about this part, and they can read it and go, yeah, this is really great. So that's another good use for an alpha reader, is to help you keep going, to make sure that you feel like you're actively actually doing something useful. They can help you with stuff as you go as well, with plot problems, with scenes, talk over characters, things like that. So an alpha reader is a good person to have around that you can bounce ideas off of and give you good feedback on things, and you can have them read your rough work. Beta readers, on the other hand, should know very little about your work in progress. They should know about as much as a normal reader would find out if they read the blurb. So a basic outline of what's the genre, what's the basic plot line, and, what's its basic tone. Just the stuff you'd see on a blurb. That's what your beta reader should know. You want them coming in as unbiased as possible. You don't want them having anything spoiled or anything like that. Preferably, you want 3 to 4 people if you can find them. These are the hardest people to find because you need some people who are willing to go from beginning to end of your whole book and give you feedback on stuff. So that can be kind of tricky. Another thing is you need beta readers who are honest, who will give you their honest opinion without being horribly mean, but honest. So if they don't think something's working, they should tell you that. The last thing you want is a yes man. You never ever want somebody to read your stuff as a beta reader whom you want feedback from, who is going to say, this is amazing, I've never read anything so great. Well, did you find anything wrong? No, I wouldn't change a word. That's useless, because I guarantee you there's something you should change. Every piece of literature in the world could be made a little bit better. And if this is an early novel or a first novel, I promise you there's more than a little that can get fixed. So if that's how they're giving you feedback, they're not a good beta reader. Another really helpful trait in a beta reader is going to be someone who can articulate that they think something is wrong, at least in basic terms. At the very least, you want somebody who can read a scene and say, this doesn't work for me. They don't have to know exactly what's wrong, but just finding out that something is wrong is helpful. If you can find a beta reader who does articulate very well exactly what they feel is wrong, that's super helpful. So if you have fellow authors and really good people who like to read a lot, they can be really helpful beta readers because they'll have a better idea of how to articulate what they think is wrong and what they think is right about your work. The other thing you want to do is you want to find people who actually like your genre. They don't all have to like your genre, but they at least have to know something about the genre you're trying to write in, or at least the basics of it. If your Nana likes biographies and you're writing a rollicking sci-fi and she's never even seen Star Wars, Nana's probably not the right person to read your book. If, however, you're really lucky and you know somebody who's close to you who likes to read sci-fi and fantasy, and you're writing sci-fi and fantasy, they'd probably be a good person to approach and ask them to read it. Because then they'll understand what the current genre expectations are and be able to tell you if you've hit them, if you've subverted them well and they like that, or if you're completely off track and you're not getting anywhere near the mark and it's just unsatisfying because it's just doesn't feel like a story in that genre. Especially if you're writing in the mainstream market, this is an important part of it. Usually if you're writing in that genre, you should probably like to read in that genre yourself, but another set of eyes on it is very helpful. And if you have somebody who really loves literature and they're reading your science fiction or your fantasy novel, they're going to have really different expectations, and they're not going to be able to point out as well when something doesn't work, because what they're looking for and what you're trying to produce are two different things. But going cross-genre isn't necessarily a problem. But avoid somebody who hates your genre. What if you don't have any beta readers? What if you don't know anybody else who likes to read? What if your spouse thinks you're crazy and is wasting your time? What if your parents want you to be a lawyer and you're writing a novel? What if you don't have any close friends available to fill this role? Well, we have the internet now, which is fantastic because there are groups on Facebook that do this. There are several critiquing sites and writing groups and all kinds of stuff that you can get involved in that can totally fill these voids for you. But it's even more important to get started in those places now, because building up a relationship with somebody and having them be willing to read your entire novel takes time. So you want to get involved now if you aren't already. I'm personally a member of the writing community called Scribophile. I've mentioned this in my supplemental before, and I really like Scribophile. It's a really good community, and now would be a great time to get involved in that site if you want to do that at all and you don't have another option for beta readers. But it's a karma system, so you're going to have to do a lot of critiquing before you can get critiquing back. So keep that in mind, which is always the best policy anyway. So I would highly recommend, if you don't have beta readers at this point, that you find an online community and get involved there. But be willing to put in the work, because nobody likes somebody who only wants feedback and is never willing to give it. And giving feedback is a great way to start getting a better idea of how to find things wrong in your own stories, and gives you better articulation tools. If you happen to be a pantser and you're already done or really close to being done, go ahead and find people to read it now, because it's going to take you probably a lot longer to edit than it's going to take a planner. Planners' first drafts tend to be a little neater than a pantser. Their plot lines are usually a little more aerodynamic. There's not as much huge, big picture things to change, so there's a lot less rewriting, generally speaking, for a planner than a pantser. So if you're a pantser, you might want to start having people read it now. Another note, I personally don't like giving first drafts to beta readers. Some people do. I'm not a big fan of it myself. My personal process is to go through it myself as much as I can and fix everything I can possibly think of to fix, then have other people read it. At least spell check your work before you give it to somebody to read. At least. Go through it and spell check it. I don't care that it's 115,000 words, spell check it. Never insult somebody that you're giving your work to read by not taking at least a little bit of work to make it as readable for them as you can. You're already giving it to them in a raw format. It's already unfinished. It already needs a ton of work. Don't give them that little extra bit of work. Make it as easy for them as possible, because they are doing you a huge favor. Critiquing and giving feedback is hard. It takes a lot of mental energy. So always respect that when it comes to people giving you feedback. Another big one, don't argue with people who give you feedback. Even if you think they're the most wrong people in the world and that they're giving you the most horrible feedback, you thank them for your time and you move on. Don't get defensive. That's a big one. It's hard to get feedback on something, especially when the feedback is bad and they're saying something is wrong with it. That can be very difficult. So make sure you don't get defensive. You never want to make the person that gave you feedback feel like they should have never done that in the first place, because they will never read your stuff again. So make sure you treat them kindly and well and respect their time and their effort. As for my novel right now, I'm actually still behind. I'm really trying to catch up. I think I'm supposed to be at like 48 or something, and I'm just kicked in at like 43. But I'm still writing. Even behind, I'm writing. So, yay! So you guys should still be writing too. Don't let the world get in your way. Just keep writing. And I will see you next week with Shivam, and we will talk about something else. Any questions? hey@getwriting.wang. Give us comments, send us emails, and we'll see you later. You also wanna